And let's start in Boulder, Colorado, because Deion Sanders is pretty clearly building something that has some staying power in Boulder. So before he even coaches a game or even coaches a practice, by the way, hasn't even had a spring practice, this guy is making major splashes on the recruiting trail. And he is able to flip the number one corner in the country, Cormani McClain, flips to Colorado. 5-star recruit, one of the highest rated recruits that Colorado has ever gotten. And here Deion is doing it for the second straight year, by the way, with the number one corner in the country. He gets Travis Hunter a year ago to flip to Jackson State. Now he gets Cormani McClain to flip from Miami and go to Colorado. And this is, by the way, on the heels of Travis Hunter transferring to Colorado. So what does this mean? Well, it means Colorado's getting an excellent player. We know that, right? We understand what a great corner can do, in particular early in his career. Think of what Derek Stingley was able to do early in his career as a freshman, maybe even one of the best players in all of college football that year. Think of last year, late in the year, what Will Johnson was able to do for Michigan, right? Like, these guys can come in and play and impact the game right away. These highly rated corner recruits. I think people in Boulder and all over the Pac-12 are expecting Cormani McClain to be that type of player. And now he's going to be opposite of Travis Hunter. And so now, think of it for a moment. In the span of a few months, Colorado went from basically a non-existent Power 5 team, 1-11, probably in the basement of all of the Power 5, now to a team that everybody's talking about, number one. Everybody wants to consume, anything and everything about them. You look at what's going on social media and everyone consuming the videos about Deion Sanders' first meeting, so on and so forth, all the chatter. And now every single recruit in the country, regardless of how high level they are, Colorado's in the top 5 list. Every time they drop that list, and now they get Cormani McClain, and now he's going to be opposite Travis Hunter. And these two guys are about to be one of the best duos in all of college football right away. I'm excited to see it. I think most people are excited to see it. And isn't it smart, by the way? It's one thing to just go out and nab stars. And listen, there are schools that do that and coaches that do that, kind of to save their butt, in particular late in a recruiting class. This is something different, though, and I think that we all can understand that because of who's coming back at the quarterback position, not corner, but quarterback position in that conference. I think most of us believe, and rightly so, that the Pac-12 is going to be the best quarterback conference in college football next year. Look at the guys that they've got coming back. I mean, Caleb Williams, for one. We know how all of us feel about Caleb Williams. Michael Penix at Washington, guy that probably should have gotten consideration to go to New York as a Heisman finalist. Bo Nix at Oregon, he's back, highly productive, had a terrific year. If he can duplicate that and play as well and as efficient next year, that should be a very good team. Cam Rising back at Utah. You go down the list and you start thinking about the best teams in this conference, and you're like, okay, there's going to be some players. By the way, a quiet 10-win team, Oregon State, gets a former 5-star player in DJ Uyunglele, is now all of a sudden an Oregon State Beaver. And I understand that it didn't work at Clemson for him. And that's all well and good. Number one, there were flashes of brilliance, namely this year on the road against Wake Forest in a win, in really kind of the middle part of the season. And that's a team that doesn't need spectacular quarterback play to become much better because of what they can do running the ball and the toughness and the physical aspect of what they have there under Jonathan Smith. So this is one of the best quarterback conferences in the country, if not the best. Well, what are you going to do if you're Colorado? You better put some guys that can cover out there. And now all of a sudden you're going to have Travis Hunter opposite of Cormani McClain, and that could be the best duo in all of college football. It speaks to this point. This sport is about talent acquisition. First and foremost, you've got to have the players in order to win games. Kirby Smart always talks about it. Nick Saban always talks about it, and rightly so. You look at the best programs in the country, and what do? They recruit at the highest level. And so now, here's what Colorado has done on the heels of a 1-11 year in which most of us thought that they were the worst Power 5 program in the country. And they just pulled in a top 30 high school class in terms of recruiting. Top 30. That's pretty damn good. And then you look at what they did in the transfer portal, the number 4 transfer class in the entire country. Well, now you're transforming your roster. Now you're transforming into tangible wins the next season. And we saw that a year ago, right? This transfer portal is the quickest way to turn your program around. We saw it at Washington. We saw it at USC. We saw it at TCU. Those programs turned themselves around in large part because of the transfer portal, filling holes in areas of need. They're doing that. Number 4 in the country in the transfer portal, which means that when you combine their ranking, 29 in their high school recruiting class and 4 in the transfer portal, their composite ranking right now overall is 19. They're a top 20 class in terms of recruiting. After a 1-11 year, Deion Sanders is doing exactly what they intended him to do, which was make the program relevant and get into every living room you can in America. And he's doing that. He's doing exactly what the blueprint was when they laid it out to hire Deion Sanders. So now you look at that top 20 class overall, 19 in the country. And you start to think to yourself, okay, well, if you were in the SEC and you finished 19th, where would you be? Well, probably middle of the pack or even lower, because that conference as a whole, as we know, recruits at a much higher level. But in the Pac-12, where do you land? Well, in the Pac-12, they would actually land 3rd. So USC, as far as a combined class, is 9th in the country. Oregon, 11th in the country. And number 3 on that list, Colorado. Okay, so now we know a few things. Let's back up all this. Number 1, to compete in the conference, in particular next year, you better have corners. They've got that with Cormani McClain and Travis Hunter. Okay, and to compete overall in this sport, you better acquire talent, and you better do it right now. Well, they did that both in the high school recruiting class, top 30, and in the transfer portal, top 4 class in the country, which means now all of a sudden they did as well as anybody in the conference. And you start to just peer over that railing just 1 year. Think about this. Next year, it's going to be very difficult with all the quarterbacks in the Pac-12. Can they get over the 4.5 that Vegas has set for them as a win-loss total? Yeah, probably. I would say over. I think Colorado can and probably will go to a bowl game. The standard that they're setting is incredibly high within the building. It's not just, social media and recruiting. Like, they're doing some work in the building, and I think it's going to pay off in wins. But it's not what it pays off next year in wins that really interests me. It's actually the year after. Why is that? Well, they're going to get a whole nother year of recruiting, and they're probably going to have numbers that are much higher than what they just did in the last, 2 or 3 weeks when they were able to pull in the 19th best combined class in the country. I expect that to go up. When that goes up, now you've got more of your players, another round of transfer. They're going to flip this roster to the tune of 60, 65 new players in 2 years from what they had before Deion Sanders was hired. And it's the year that USC and UCLA leave to go to the Big Ten. And it's the year that the playoff expands. And basically, you win the Pac-12, and you're going to have almost a guaranteed spot in the playoff. You see where I'm headed with this. I fully expect in year 2, under Deion Sanders at Colorado, that they are competing as a top 2 or 3 program in the conference, which means they're competing for the conference crown, which means they're competing for a chance to go to the college football playoff. I think it can go that quick. You might think that I'm totally crazy, and maybe you think I'm a homer. But when you lay it out like that, and you think of the fact that they're going to have 40 new players this year, and they're going to have 60, 65 new players by year 2 from what they had before Deion Sanders was hired as their head coach. You look at the level of player that they're bringing in, guys like Cormani McClain, guys like Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, a 4-star quarterback, is going to be, they're flipping 4-star running backs from Notre Dame. Their talent is going to be a top 3 talent roster in the conference in 2024. Which means you should compete for the conference. And if you're competing for the conference, you're competing for a chance to go to the 12-team playoff. I think it can go that quickly. Again, I'll just put it to you this way. Deion Sanders at Colorado, likely, in my opinion, will compete for a playoff spot in year 2 in 2024. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here. College football on Fox.